It's been a while, and we're back with another episode of the Just No BS podcast. As usual, I'm your boy John. To my right, I've got
Devin.
And to the far right, we got
Hey, it's good. It's Cal.
And we are back. It's been a little bit, but it's been a busy couple weeks between, the beginning of the holidays and your boy Cal getting married. So, we've had to push things back a little bit. How's it feel?
Man, everybody's been asking me. It feels new. Like, it feels new. My lady asked me last night. She was like, "What do you mean by new? Like, what did you explain it? Like a new shiny toy that once it's not shiny anymore, you don't want to play with it?" And I was like, more like a DLC to a game that I already have. Like, we got the fundamentals, we know the controls, but it's just a new, area to explore type deal. And of course, you're like, "Oh, okay, I guess that works." It's like, yeah, like it's because we've been together for what, 7 years?
Yeah,
7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy, but it's just a blessing, man. It's a blessing. So I cannot complain.
Give me 1 second. I'm being summoned. But, yeah. Let us know how your week's been going in the meantime, Devin.
Honestly, just busy with work. We kind of touched on a couple of things on the political side the last time, and those things do have an effect on my job, which just makes it a little crazy, but we're working through.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of those interesting parts about being in that intersectional part of things, as to where it's like, even if you're not really invested in politics, it's kind of like you're invested in your job, so you gotta, you know what I'm saying, passively at least follow what's going on locally.
Exactly.
So I feel
Sorry about that. My lady wanted to go ahead and buy her game because it just dropped tonight, so here we are.
Ah, which game?
The Disney Dreamlight, the new expansion just dropped literally, like, I don't know, maybe an hour ago. So, yeah.
Oh, sure. Cool.
But on the real quick, we got to say rest in peace. It's been a couple weeks, but after our Halloween episode dropped, one of our favorite horror characters, like the guy who, at least for me in the 90s, was like one of the great ones. R.I.P. to Tony Todd, man. Like, we lost a great one, man. He was so young too. Like, I don't even think he was 60.
which is insane.
Yeah.
Which is insane. I don't know what it was about some of the stars back in the 90s when we were growing up, to where they looked older than what they were. I don't like it doesn't make sense to me.
Correction. He wasn't 70. He was 69.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Well, he fits how he looks.
Still pretty young. Like, I mean, Betty White made it to almost 100.
Yeah.
We lost James Earl Jones. He was in his 90s. I mean, like, but
Yeah.
still, like,
Hell, Dick Van Dyke is still alive.
we still have Jimmy Carter still alive for somehow. Like, but
Allegedly.
we're not going to get into that, sir. But no, on a real one though, rest in peace. He, just from Final Destination alone, he was one of my favorites, man.
Yeah, I had to pull up the list of some of his work because I'm like, hey, I know him from Final Destination, but what else? And he's just got a long list of everything that he's been a part of.
I mean, the original Candyman, like, that was him. Heck, he was one of the best parts apparently of Destiny. Like, they did a whole the game series. They did a whole passing away for him. Like, just people in the game just respected him as a voice actor. It's just nuts, man. But R.I.P. to one of those.
Mm-hmm. Several different TV shows that he cameoed in or was like a full star in. Multiple video games.
I got his cameos in Smallville. Like, he had 2 episodes, I think he cameoed in Smallville. Just good times, man.
That's the sad part about, like, and I say this like off camera or whatnot a lot, but that's like the thing with getting older. Like you watch the people that you grew up on pass away, and you really just hope that they're in like a very comfortable, safe position, and it's not like an
Mm-hmm.
agonizing transition for real, for real. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like one of the biggest people that we lost in our like generation for real, Chadwick Boseman. Like you saw like
Mm-hmm.
in that time, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, like he's getting skinny," and you see like the assholes pop up obviously, and they're like, "Oh da 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 da," like making fun of his weight loss. And then out of nowhere, he passes, and everybody who was around him were like, "Yeah, we were keeping his secret for him," type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing how loved he was, and it's like, damn, like we never got to see him, get old, play those elder statesman roles that like Denzel's been playing for the last 20 years at this point. And it's like, damn, like I don't know. It's just crazy. It's just crazy getting older, honestly.
Speaking of
Mm-hmm.
Denzel, I'm definitely gonna go see that Gladiator movie.
Oh, for sure,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
sure.
Like outside of the fact that obviously he doesn't have an accent, who cares? It looks like it's gonna be a pretty good movie regardless. So I'm gonna go see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. But you know what else is? You brought it up, Devin. He's been that Tony Todd's on a lot of games. How do y'all feel about this Game of the Year exchange they're doing for the Game of the Year award?
Mm.
I'll let you go. I'll let you.
So I'm kind of on the fence on it. So to kind of give an idea of what we're talking about here, for anyone who doesn't know, they just happen to add on DLCs and add-ons that can receive awards as well for the game itself.
Remakes
Uh,
and remasters too.
exactly. So
That's cheating.
personally, oh, go ahead.
No, I just
Mhm.
want to say that part right there, remasters get to be introduced. That's cheating. You can't do.
Mhm.
You should. Well, you can. You shouldn't be allowed.
They should just do a remake or a remaster of the year award.
Yeah.
At least on that one, they should definitely make it as a different. Yeah, that should be its own award because to me, if we include those, then I still think Persona 3 Reload probably deserves it. That game was basically exactly what it was when it first came out, but with the Persona 5 like style and flourish with the same like beautiful story. Like I thought that was a perfect remaster. But hey,
Mhm.
it should probably not be a game of the year category like reward.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm fine with a remake because that way they can reimagine different parts of it. Yeah, they might have the same base story, but they might do enough of a difference where, okay, you can count it as its own game. But remasters are iffy at best in my mind, and DLCs and add-ons I think should be a separate category, or it should be the full game should be considered as opposed to just if that content was created within a year of the game. So if something came out and then within that same year they came out with like the DLC for I don't know the most recent God of War game, within that same year, I'll say okay, sure. In case it didn't win the award the last year and everything, let's go ahead and give it another go with this new content. But if it's a couple years down the line and all of a sudden it's getting, this DLC or add-on, I don't think that it should be taking a spot that some other game that came out that year is vying for.
See, I agree. To an extent, like it's a weird thing because one of the biggest not complaints, but the game that's really kind of shaking up this conversation is the Elden Ring add-on.
Mm-hmm.
Earth
Was it
tree.
Shadow of the El Tree?
Yep.
Um, I have not played it, but from my understanding, from what most people are basically saying, this could have basically been its own game. So in that regard, I'm like,
It's
maybe.
massive, Jay. So I'll give you that. It's massive. I'm not so when I saw that, it's kind of like, I don't like
Yeah,
it, but I understand.
So,
I
so I argue that well, yes, it might be like a massive update and DLC in addition to the game, it's still building off of the work of the game that it's kind of tied to, as opposed to just being its own separate game, like a God of War 2 or a Dragon's Dogma 2 or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
So I think
No,
it's kind of getting an unfair push compared to some of those other games.
yeah, no, I agree. That's kind of why, like, I understand the concept. I just don't like the idea of it as a whole. It should, honestly, for me, to avoid any kind of messiness, they probably should just all be its own categories for the most part.
Hmm.
If you're trying to stay unmessy. Now, if you're going to build something and stick to your guns on it, then stick to your guns. But this is one of those things where I feel like the Game Awards are just trying to double dip because they know specifically Elden Ring is going to be one of those games people are going to want. So they change the rules to make sure Elden Ring can get in. Like, that's kind of where I feel like they're purposely double dipping just for the hype.
Right.
So it's like, again, if this isn't like they made this change, let's say last year when there was no major add-on that was like, in consideration, and they just made the change to like, we thought about it with our board or whatever, we're going to do this, and this so happened that no game was an add-on, I'd have been like, okay, you might have been a little more pure about this, but the way it currently stands, I feel like they really did it just for the knowing that Elden Ring was going to be a major contender.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. I got two points in regards to this. My first one is typically when you start to see flaws in a business, an organization, anything else like that, if what you're trying to do in this institution or this or whatever discipline this is, if it can't work across the line for every other discipline that's immediately adjacent to you, you're doing something wrong. For instance, if you're allowing remasters and things like that to be considered with original works for Game of the Year and things like that, look at how that would look at the chaos that would ensue if you did that with the Grammys. Because okay, cool, y'all robbed Kendrick with Good Kid, Mad City the first time and gave it to Macklemore. If he remasters Good Kid, Mad City right now and puts it out in light of the Not Like Us and everything, it's taken home Grammy, hip hop Grammy of the Year. You see what I'm saying? In light of it doesn't matter. I love Tyler the Creator's album. That's one of the best like albums that I've listened to in a minute, in a nice little minute. I also love
Mm-hmm.
Ab Soul's album. I feel the same way about that. I love Dochi's work as well. Feel the same way about that, especially not saying that I judge women on a curve, but a lot of people like lower their expectation for women MCs a lot. So that allows a lot to slide under the garage door. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Glorilla's album was pretty good too. Even
And I
that
was,
gospel, even that gospel song kind of slapped. So I'm not gonna lie, I
yeah,
was like, wait a
perfect.
minute.
So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's like and that's just there. That's just the Grammys. When you look at the Oscars, could you imagine if Scarface remastered was able to be put into? You see what I'm saying? Al Pacino's performance in half of his catalog for real. Scarface, Devil's Advocate. You just start to go down. Okay, cool. We're gonna remaster Training Day. Training Day is now. You see what I'm saying? It's like this shit doesn't work when you look at it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Around the whole sphere of entertainment. It doesn't work, which means it's probably a stupid idea. So you probably shouldn't do it. And my second thing is, I feel like there's another side of the coin that comes with this because when you now allow remasters and things like that to also be supplemented in there, you are actively and intentionally undercutting smaller developing studios. That's the other
Mm-hmm.
part that I think a lot of people are missing. So if you have, I'm not saying that Larian is a small studio whatsoever, but Baldur's Gate 3 was that was the era.
it was deserving.
Yeah, that's when I saw what they were doing early, like, because I was following it early on, I was like, oh, this is gonna rock up some stuff. As well as um you looking at this goes back to my previous point. I'm sorry, because I just thought of this and it just came in my head. When you look at a situation like what happened with the Country Music Awards that just passed, there was not a bigger country song this year in America than Tipsy,
Shabuzi.
than Shabuzi. They didn't give him shit. You see what I'm saying? And it's like that. So imagine, mind you, We know why they didn't give him shit. He should have known they weren't going to give him shit. Exactly. Like, but it's like, could you imagine if he had to go up against Johnny Cash or something like that, Tim McGraw? It's like, bro, you were
Mhm.
never gonna fucking get. If that happened, you were never going to get that. If every year you put out a work, if I'm a singer, I have to. If I'm a singer, I have to go up against Michael Jackson every other year, or Prince, or Marvin Gaye, or Usher. Like 20
Remastered.
yeah,
My Way in 4K, y'all.
Mhm.
it doesn't work, bro. It doesn't work. If you did it even past music, video games, and this is my last part. You look at what the ESPYs would look like if every year somebody had to compete against Michael Jordan's best season for athlete of the year. Or every year they had to compete against Serena Williams' best season. Every year, you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense for you to do that. These are supposed to be snapshots in time that we can look back on and be like, yes, in that era, for this year, this was the shit. This what if you didn't have this game and you didn't experience the story of this game, you just missed out, which encouraged people to go back. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like that's
Could
just
you could you imagine if they I'm gonna switch it back to video games for a second. Like, could you imagine any other RPG trying to win RPG of the year if they just kept remastering Chrono Trigger, which is considered one of the top 3 RPGs of all time?
Mhm.
you're not getting it, bro. It's just not getting it.
Oh,
Now, on that topic of taking things out of their generation and context and so on and so forth, did either one of you see the fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul? That reaction right there.
I didn't
That's all.
watch it. I did not watch it. I had other things to do in my time, but I did see the highlights. And I was just like, so you fought against a statue and barely won on points. Okay, I'm not.
Right?
And
Okay, I'm good.
I don't think people like there were people online. We're not gonna say anything else, but you had individuals saying like, "Oh, you can't. This fight wasn't rigged. You can't realistically rig a fight." And then the contract stuff came out, and they're like, "You can't knock him out in the first round. You can't knock him out in the second round. You'll get the highest payout if you go all the full rounds with him, and it has to go to decision." You say that to the guy who's literally known for beating people's asses so bad, the people in the front rows can't even get to their seats before you whip his ass. That's why the boxing commission was so mad at him. Again, I'm a history nerd. When something piques my interest, I'm gonna go look. It don't matter if it takes me back 30 years, 40 years. Like, I'm gonna go find my answer to this question. With that being said, you take a guy who's known for his explosive, unrelenting style and say, don't knock him out in the first round. Bitch, that's what I do. I knock people out in the first round. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
I rush you, I overwhelm you with sheer force. So it's like that right there when you take a man, that's like if you got a basketball game again and you're like, Steph Curry, you cannot shoot threes for the first half. I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest person ever at doing this thing that you're telling me not to do. Yeah, we get it. But it's for entertainment.
Hey,
No.
LeBron, you're not allowed to drive the basketball.
Exactly. LeBron, you cannot cross the 3-point line. But I'm big. No, we don't. Mm-mm. So again,
Kyrie, you're not allowed to use good dribbles.
exactly. Three dribbles. Three dribbles a touch, brother. Like that's what. But again, I like the fact that the people who are active boxers are popping up and it's like, fight me.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck all that. I like when dogs are dogs, bro. That's what I like.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. No, that was cool. But bro, you couldn't have beaten Mike Tyson. You couldn't have beaten Mike Tyson now without the contract stipulations. You sure as shit couldn't have beaten him 10 years ago without the contract. So in my mind, this is it's a Pyrrhic victory. You won.
Mm-hmm. But did you though?
You did.
Unfortunately, in their minds, it's all about the cash. So like he's gonna try to make it look like he wants something big, but because the payout is what it is, it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's that finance bro, I made the money type mentality. So it's like the rest of us who have eyes saw what we saw, but
Because even in the fight, Jay Zo, I forget what round it was because I didn't watch it because I knew what was going to happen. Respectfully, like I've seen enough of these. What are they like novelty fights? I've seen enough of them. Like who's actually
exhibitions,
going? You said what?
Hmm.
My bad.
exhibitions.
Exhibition.
Yeah, exhibition fights. Thank you. Like because there was a time where like the boxer part of Mike Tyson kicked in and like he threw something and he weaved it and he was closing the distance. Boom, hit him and was coming. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then he was biting his thumb. Like, oh my god! But it's like, yeah, we know what would have really happened.
Hmm.
But
It
again,
was crazy. I saw a highlight of, I think it was like the first or the second round. Again, I didn't watch it, so don't hold me to it. But like, where like, I think Jake threw like a jab, like Tyson actually weaved it and like went for the counter, and literally like you could tell he pulled his punch back. Like he
yep,
like was
Hmm.
this close to his face. I was like,
That.
oh my god, no, that's not,
yeah,
no.
Hmm.
yeah. I don't know, man. I just want y'all to fight somebody young and hungry. That's it. Because Mike Tyson, I'm not saying he's the richest person by his own confessions. He's not the richest person. He's lost a lot of money. So he probably needed that. Respectfully. Not trying to disrespect you, brother. You're an elder, you're a legend. We love you to life.
We ain't counting your pockets, bro.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I want to see one of these young bulls, as my Philly brothers would say, one of the young bulls. And they go up there and they need this. They need the opportunity. They need the exposure. Somebody is gonna, what did Kevin Hart say? Push your muffin cap back blue. I don't even know.
Hmm.
But it sounds like it's gonna happen. It's that's all I'm saying.
Look, I want someone to get tutored by Tyson and then go ahead and do a rematch on that fight and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's something I'd like to go and see. And not just like oh hey, first round or two, you gotta hold back, so on and so forth. Like a real actual fight.
Mm-hmm. That's all I want to see. I like things to be simple. I want a hierarchy. That's what fighting is. Going back to the dawn of time, it establishes a hierarchy. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, like yeah, you're cool, you're intellectual, da 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 da. But can you beat my ass though?
Hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? That's how it was solved back in the day. And if I beat your ass, I'm taking your wife and your kids. What's up? Damn. Like,
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
exactly. We established a hierarchy, bro. That's what it was.
Hmm.
Like, that's what boxing was supposed to be. That's what mixed martial arts was supposed to be.
Hmm.
Black Bar, I forgot who said it, but they're like, fighting is so like primitive to the human brain that if a fight in the crowd broke out at a boxing event, people would be watching both because it's such like a carnal thing for humankind that it's like, oh, we want to see who's going to win. That's it. We just want to see what's going to happen. Like
Hmm.
the Paul brothers, y'all are pussy. My name's Cal, born and raised in Florida. I'm like that. I'm like that, respectfully, and y'all are pussy. That's me. That's just me.
Wow. On that note, that actually kind of gives me a great segue here for once. So he mentioned he's born and raised in Florida. So this is going to transition us to our three body breakdown topic for the episode. So I asked this question to a lot of my people at one point or another. Um, is there a difference between a blerd or a black nerd? And I've done this for a long time now, ever since Blerd basically became a talking point, a topic, or word that people use. Because on the, a simple face when someone would say a blerd, just a combination of word black and nerd. Black nerd, boom. But is it really like that? That's kind of my question for today. And again, the reason I've always asked people this question is because you have, people with different experiences. We have the stereotype of, I was bullied for this. We have the stereotypes of, nah, that's that weak stuff. That's that childish stuff. So I kind of want to hash it out, talk about it, because again, we've talked about it a little bit before on the off camera, back end, just as bros, but like we all have different experiences with this kind of thing. So I always like to ask people this question to see where their mind's at. So let's just start with the simple question: should we define Blerd? How should we define it if we define it at all? What y'all got? Oh, Cal's up.
Blerd, I'll be honest. Blerd is, yes, that is the amalgamation of those two things, absolutely. But I personally, in my opinion, feel that it's culturally censored. What I mean by that is you as a black nerd, well, I'll just say Blerd. You as a Blerd are more so like you can be a Blerd of anything. Like I'm a Blerd of anime. I'm a Blerd of hip hop. I'm a Blerd of battle rap. I'm a Blerd of football. I'm a Blerd of gaming. You see what I'm saying? When I say culturally censored, that means I appreciate, um, admonish, and revere things to where I see myself in that. You see what I'm saying? And I seek things out that validate my blackness. You see what I'm saying? So that takes a different level of research. That takes a different level of observation that goes into it. You see what I'm saying? So like there would be a situation as to where like even like again, this is a culturally censored thing that I'm talking about. So it would be like how we readily identify Piccolo as black, something like that. Or we look at not racially, but like color and culturally um non-fitting people as black people, and like we praise black representation in anime and things like that. Like I love Canary. I will always love Canary from Hunter x Hunter because she was like that. Mind you, they made her a butler. We're not going to talk about that part of it, but she was like that. She was a butler. She was a butler that would make what's my man's name? Alfred do a double take. Oh, she's really like that. You see what I'm saying? And then you look at I forget the black brother's name from Fire Force immediately, but he was patterned after an
Mm-hmm.
African god. You see what I'm saying? So it's like that type of stuff. I love stuff like that. I love when I see black people. That's why I love Meg the Stallion. Unabashedly, I love this woman because that's some shit I would do if I was like rich and famous. You see what I'm saying? Because my passion is hip hop. My passion is also just looking at great animation. So yes, I would be dressing up as every fucking black anime character at all times. Yes, I'm gonna do some utterly ridiculous shit. Yes, I'm going to love and appreciate people like the Chia clan who were disproportionately oppressed and were like had their people get blackmailed and murdered by their own kind. Because ironically enough, the story of the Chia clan and everything else like that, almost there are parallels between that and the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, to where you had somebody who was there, a part of the clan, a part of the culture, a part of the race, who realized I should probably get y'all the fuck up out of here. Was it right? Was it wrong? That's up to your interpretation, up to your life experience. But that's where that is. The black nerd in my brain is somebody who does not care about that. And that's where I see that's the difference that I see between the Blerd and a black nerd. The black nerd will be the individual who easily falls down the MGTOW red pill pipeline because they don't focus on community, they don't focus on being represented, they don't focus on empowering individuals who want to tell their stories. They just like what they like and they like what they like and they find no connection. They don't seek community. Those are the weird niggas. Y'all are weird niggas. Whoever, whenever, however, wherever y'all are weird niggas. That's my opinion. That's just me.
So before Devin goes, how you described it reminds me of the actual meaning of the word otaku.
Okay.
So if you actually talk to someone who's Japanese or studied Japanese for a little bit, word otaku does not mean anime nerd. At least not in its original context. It's more like the generic word nerd, where you could be a gun otaku or a building otaku. It means you're just a person who's very enthusiastically enjoys whatever they enjoy. So, like, especially if you watch early anime, you'll always, when someone used the word otaku, for the most part, you would always see, like, whatever they're talking about, then the word otaku followed it, to kind of indicate that's the nerdism they're talking about. Now, in this day and age, if you hear otaku, they're talking about manga, anime, etc. But that's kind of what our cultures have kind of shifted the word nerd and otaku into. But that's kind of what you're describing is kind of the kind of history of that word. So, what about you, Dan? What you got?
So, a couple things. Kind of working backwards. First off, with how you described an otaku, like that, spot on there. And I feel like the way that whenever someone hears otaku now, they think of like anime, video games, so on and so forth. I feel like anytime I come across the word blurred, I feel like I only hear about anyone who is black that is a nerd that is only focused on anime, video games, and so on and so forth, as opposed to what Cal was bringing up, where hey, you can be a blerd for music and all kinds of other different things, and that's a little bit of the problem that I have with the word. To give a little backstory on my ends, I, as growing up as a kid who was black and also a nerd, um, nerds in general weren't necessarily as open to someone who was black. It wasn't very often that you'd find someone who would, or a group that would allow someone who was black that would allow them into D&D. It's not that often that you would go and hear someone, who is black that also got to really focus on video games because everyone would think that's weird. Like, oh, hey, you play video games, you're not doing insert stereotype that everyone thought about black people, you know? So there was a lot that was tied to that. Nowadays, it's become a little bit more mainstream, and I don't mean that in the bad way. I mean that in the sense of it's now become more inviting for everyone involved to get into things that are considered nerdy, including black people. And I do like that. And I do like that inclusion across the board. I do like the fact that black people now can kind of talk to one another, go and say, oh, hey, I'm into this nerdy thing. So are you? Cool. And feel some sort of bond there. Uh, but I'm afraid that people are going to lose some of that and some of that history of what it took to kind of get to that point and just only focus on, oh, hey, you hear Blerd, you're just into anime and you're black and you miss some of that context.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's a very particular Facebook group. If you know, you know. I'm not going to say names because I'm not trying to bash anybody. It's just an example I've seen. Um, so just in recent history, where, like Devin said, like it's if you use the word blurred, it always starts off with anime slash manga first. Now I am seeing more people kind of talk about like wrestling and whatever and kind of show their other hobbies now. So I am hopeful on that end. But for me, this I always ask that question because it comes down to connotation. What people tend to try to gloss over when it comes to, and this is going to be me getting on my nerd thing here. If anything, I'm a word nerd. Like people always try to act like a word doesn't have a connotation or a phrase doesn't have a connotation, and I always have a strict problem with that. Words don't have just their meaning; they have their connotation, and that's kind of what I'm seeing with this word blur now. It's having a connotation that you're only interested in manga and anime, where, like you said, Cal and Devin, where you can be interested in other things, you just happen to like anime or manga, whatever. Growing up, when people just call you black nerd or whatever, again they would just see you as this nerdy person that's into what you're into. A lot of times in the black community specifically, we'll call it weird because it's just not normal. But a lot of times those people you would consider weird would be some of the same people that are playing drums in your church, singing choir, you know, playing ball after school, doing whatever. It just so happens they have this interest. So, like, to me, the both of these words or connotations have kind of done this, but they're not going in the same direction. But they're kind of like crossed into each other and they're skewing in different directions. Um, I don't necessarily have a problem if you're going to call someone a blerd or a black nerd. I just don't want negative connotation to rule whatever you're going to use. Again, I have very good hope in the community and the culture in general. It's like when people use the culture, what does that fully mean? But to me, at the end of the day, I'm hopeful because more and more people are not letting stereotypes stick to people, which is why I'm hopeful that, we can just use it and be like, yeah, he's, really into whatever. He just happens to be black. Or, this black person lives in your neighborhood. He happens to be a nerd for such and such thing. Um,
And what I will say, thank you to the forefathers in the black community who were blurs and things like that, like the generation prior to us. So like you got, what was it, like Generation X? So you get those
Mhm.
individuals who were essentially like cross pollinating um when it came to that. So like for instance, like when I think of that in the my native language is hip hop. So like I think of Wu-Tang Clan because these brothers are who they were when they were. And they were bringing in like Shaolin culture, even in the iconography and what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Individuals like Lupe Fiasco, who is older, and he's heavily entrenched in Japanese culture, heavily entrenched in samurai culture, like stuff like that, to where it's like it opens up the lane. Our generation obviously did a lot of traction, bringing it into a space as to where it's more digestible and it wasn't yeah, you kind of you touched on it, Jason, where you said like otaku. So you have that weird culture of like the conflating of black nerd and blurred that was happening. Like you had the brothers who were weird and scaring the hoes. We're gonna call it what it is. You niggas
Mhm.
must be. You niggas is scaring the hoes. Y'all can tell us every type of fucking sword and tell us why the katana deserves to be held in higher regard than a claymore. But then a girl will walk up to you and say, "Hey, I like anime too," and you'll be like, "Who is the creator of XYZ anime? XYZ anime?" You're scaring the hoes, bro. And I would also like to thank, you know, the generations after us. You know what I'm saying? Like the Gen Alphas and Gen Z and things like that, as to where they are the targeted demographic of the individuals like Meg Thee Stallion and things like that. To where she's also showing like I can be a bad bitch, but I like nerd shit as well. And if you want to eat this pussy, you gotta watch Yu Yu Hakusho with me. Bitch, I love that. And I love that for us. Hey,
Look,
I'm
all I'm
married.
saying is,
You know I want you.
look,
What's up?
Cal, you're married now, so since I, as someone who isn't married, I think I'm gonna go ahead and, live that life for you. I'll let you know all about it.
Uh-uh. I need that. I
uh,
need that. The only thing I need more than that is reparations. Give me the reparations. Going to see right after. It is what it is. It is what it is. But
you
I
know,
appreciate that.
speaking of that, which is kind of crazy. Like the more I talk to people and ask people those types of questions, the more I realize it comes back to racism yet again. It's
For
like
sure.
the arbitrage that just lives over black people because how many white people can just go around and talk about their stuff and people look at them like weird, but they don't dismiss them.
Right.
Black people will get dismissed for coming off weird, but a white
Mhm.
person look at the strange look, and until they do something ridiculous that they're all of a sudden like, oh, why didn't we see the signs?
Right.
He's been weird this whole time. So
Mhm.
Then, and before we transition, Jazo, this is not going to help your transition. I'm going to let you know right now. This is not.
it is what it
I,
is.
we're nerd. We're blurs. You see what I'm saying? So, what I will say, post the election, I have seen an uptick in individuals supporting Gavin Newsom. They want him to be the individual who's going to be the representation of the Democratic Party. I am not on either side of the aisle. I just know which crazy you can negotiate with. And I'll leave it at that. They're loving Gavin Newsom. They're saying, oh, he's in California. It's a really progressive state. Blah, 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 whoop de whoop. They say he reminds them of Christian Bale in American Psycho. All of that, they think that that's a glowing endorsement. Gavin Newsom was the individual who, not even 3 months ago, stood against reparations for Black Californians. Just want to put that out there. You can go and look it up. I don't lie about shit. You can look up everything and anything that I state here. You will find it. They shadow put the bill out on the floor, and the majority of Democrats in California stood against it. Just want to put that out there. It's a nice little research thing if you drink coffee in the morning and just want to do some research. But that's it.
You're right. This isn't going to help my transition at all, but I will add a I will add a tidbit. It was something I don't remember. I think I was watching Kevin on Stage's podcast. It was something that his co-host Angel said that I think she was the one that said it that made me realize how ridiculous people are. When Black people as a whole fight for something, we never fight for something just on the behalf of us for the most part, but it usually benefits everybody. And the fact that we almost never get it tells us something about our culture, our society, especially as Americans, because everything Black people, we be fighting for abortion rights, we be fighting for gay rights, we be fighting for all the stuff, right? And every time it comes down to something that would help us as a majority, even though it would help everybody, no one cares. It got to it still kills me. All right, yeah, this isn't helping my transition at all, but it still kills me. We're here now, but what kills me is that the Asian community fought so hard to get rid of affirmative action. And what was the first group that saw their numbers dip with college admissions? The Asian community.
How's that treating y'all? There's a lawsuit going on right now from the Asian community. How's that treating y'all? Black man on my arm, no black man on your arm. How is that treating y'all? How's that going? How's that going? Everybody else's enrollment numbers pretty much stayed the same, but y'all's. How's that going? How's that going? Okay, cool. Try Education Connection. I think they're still open.
Yo, now I got that whole theme baby.
For real, I see the white girl dancing on my mind now.
Well, I forgot the other college where it's like, you're sitting on your phone all day. Why don't you make a call?
College. Oh my god, those commercials, bro.
Go there. Hey man.
So, as we've already established, this is the worst transition ever. But the second part of this question, now that we've kind of established that, being a Blerd or calling yourself a Black nerd it's whatever. It's about how you act with people. I will want to say, and Devin, you're pretty good with anime history on this one. Since roughly, I don't know, let's say 2004, 2005, we've seen this uptick in blackness in anime. Just shooting right on up there. It just shows us how nerd culture fuses with the mainstream. And to the point now, everything has to deal with, the multiverse, superheroes, Marvel. But, pick something. One commodity as Black people that, regardless of whatever you want to call yourself, that is just, continuously growing. And you can see it's just our influence on culture. I'm not even going to say Black culture, nerd culture, whatever. It's just Black people plus culture equals what we're living in now. And it just makes me want to talk about it a little bit. So let's just start with the easy one. The Black people influence on anime. And again, if you're a historian in anime, you want to say around 2000, 4 or 5-ish till now, that uptick. One of everyone's favorite animes, Samurai Champloo. Anybody? Little Tenjo Tenjei? Just, Nujabes. If we're going to dip into music here, I mean, it's huge. And this is one reason why I'm not against it, but I hate the concept of we should make our own black animes. Again, I am not against it. I will reiterate, I'm not against it. I think the goal is to be all encompassing, not just individualistic in one thing or another. It should not be make our own black anime to not have black characters. It should be to have our own black anime and to have black characters. Which is why I hate the whole black cosplayers can only play black. I'm rambling here, but you know, let's just dial it back. Black influence on anime and culture. Where you want to start with them? And I see you got the mind swirl in there.
So, first off, I want to provide a little bit of context when it comes to Japan and Black people in general. I'm not going to go back to, way, way back when. I'm going to go back to just within the last century or so. Um, Many people may or may not know, but Japan is really focused on Japanese people. They always have been. More so when we were getting towards like World War II and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into all those details, try not to piss off too many people there on that, but they were really focused on their people. Not necessarily a bad thing. Once the floodgates kind of opened up afterwards and started introducing different cultures, then they really didn't have a lot of experience with black people. The only time that they got any information about black people, for the most part, was from like media and so on and so forth, which a lot of the times back then portrayed black people in a negative light. Uh,
Well, do a quick interjection because he did say we're not going to go too far back.
mm,
But the other connotation of black people in Japanese society, unfortunately, dips back to slavery, when
mm,
some slaves were sold to Japanese people when the trade routes were being more opened up. That's
mm.
right, you incels. Yasuke was a real person. Continue that.
But even with that, the average citizen in Japan didn't really come across a black person before. It was a rarity. Um, so kind of going to, Japanese, media and so on and so forth, getting to Japan and so on and so forth. Again, black people represented in a negative light. It's not until relatively recently that they've been getting more and more information that kind of shows black people the way that they probably should have been shown at the time. That's where you kind of, again, going with that like 2005, 2006 area, that's when we start seeing black characters who, have more personality to them, that are more interesting and, are shown in a positive light from that point onward. Where you start kind of seeing some of the culture that is tied mostly to black people kind of start showing in other characters as well. Um, and same thing with music as on that topic as well. You start seeing that fusion of Japanese music and black music into one. So with that, I'll leave it to you guys to kind of continue on.
So the first black anime studio was opened in Japan in 2016. The Art Shitojo. Um, if I'm pronouncing that right, if I'm wrong, please correct me. I do not run from correction, but let me let me say this to the Japanese individuals. Period. Point blank. We as Black peoples, specifically American Black people, love and respect y'all's culture. There is a level of respect and reverence that we view your culture with, um, unless you're racist. But we're talking about the people that aren't racist. A
I'll
self,
get to that. Keep going, but I'll get to that in a second.
yeah, like because
Hmm.
all bets are off once you cross the line with us. But a situation as to where you have a self-governing society, when you look at it from the outside in, a society that prioritizing respecting elders as well as community and respecting old customs. They may not be applied the same way that they once were, but allowing them to still have a place as to where we seek to make them adaptable into the society that's changing and moving forward. We connect on that, period, point blank. The individuals like Johnny Somali and shit like that don't represent us, because I know it can be hard to differentiate between the two, but this individual is not a true American black person, if that makes sense. This person is not of the culture of black Americans whatsoever. He is black, he is from America, but his culture is not of us whatsoever. He literally has Somalia in his name. If you have any issues with that, take that up with Somalia. And I say this with all love, because I love all variations, shades, and inclinations of black people. You know when you're talking to a Somalian. Somalians look a very particular way. I will not explain further. You know when you're talking to a Somalian. I know, Jason. I know. That's that. I'm not gonna go farther.
But
And I'm not saying all Somalians move like that, brother, at all, either. But I'm saying phonetic, like from a phenotype situation, you know when you're talking to a Somalian. But this man, like, nah, like that's not what we are. We love that. There's a situation as to where how people can look at like the samurais, how people can look at like ninjas and things like that. I'm being very just blanketed. It's the same way that people can look at Black Panthers, freedom fighters, individuals in the Underground Railroad, the original founders of gangs, when their gangs were initially rooted in community organization, protecting the community, providing health care, free lunches, education, postgraduate stuff. That, you see what I'm saying? So that's where that is. The heart of it is the same. It beats the same and it moves at the same rhythm and cadence. This is not like we don't have any misgivings to you unless you're racist. Um, my only complaint with society, like Japanese society and things like that, is that heavy influence on colorism. I'll be honest, but I'm I'll be honest. From my studies and everything else like that, it seems as though that's an Asian thing in general, as to where white is right. And so much so, like y'all's skin bleaching shit is damn near at the same tier as Africans. What?
yeah,
That's
and
me.
this is where I'll jump in, which is twofold here. First is that the to kind of tackle the racism and colorism part of it. It's interesting is not the right word, but it's very um unique and ununique at the same time, because some of the same like colorism slash racism problems we have as black people, you can see in a lot of Asian cultures as well. One being Japanese, Korean more so, generally speaking, but you can see other Japanese, like, your standard Japanese beauty is the dark haired,
Pale skin.
slightly lighter skinned, fitting whatever. To the point where having blonde hair, you're seen as, kind of
Jason, right there.
thuggish.
I'm sorry, real quick, Jason. Keep your train of thought. I'm just saying this. Hey, y'all thick ass Asian women, y'all good with us. Don't let them talk crazy to y'all. We fuck with y'all. Devin is, thank you. I'm just saying.
While
That's it.
very true and quite hilarious, this is to my point. 10 years ago, you would have said that Japanese and Asian cultures were 10 years behind. So, for example, we're in 2024, about to be 2025 right now. If this was 2015, you'd have said Japanese culture and their understanding of Western culture would have been back in '05. But
Touche.
but in this, like, I want to say basically from like early COVID till now, you could see that the international understanding of cultures worldwide. It's not even that black or Japanese or white or whatever. More cultures are starting to have more access to understanding other cultures. to the point where they're not so behind anymore. And you can start seeing that now with the Japanese, with anime and how black was introduced. Quick history. Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball's made in the 80s. Look at how he interprets black people with Mr. Popo.
And that's why I was never a staunch watcher of Dragon Ball iconography in general. Like that.
Now watch. This is you're beautiful. You can be my soundboard of this. Now watch. That's the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now going into the 90s, you didn't see too many black characters in that regard, unless you're looking at something like G Gundam, and even then there weren't many dark-skinned characters, just in general. 90s was very heavily based on coming out of the 80s with like the magical and then mecha stuff. But early 2000s, we start getting a lot more anime where we're starting to see, like, again, Samurai Champloo, Tenjo Tenji. Tenjo Tenji had a full black character. This man was black. His name is Bob. Look it up, Caleb, if you ever want to find out. This man does not look like the Mr. Popo stereotype. He looks like just a regular black man who just happens to live in Japan. He had full cornrows and everything, like fighting capoeira and all that good stuff. But you can still see that the understanding is evolving, because you can easily see that, the guy who wrote Tenjo Tenji was playing, Tekken and saw Eddie Gordo or something,
Okay.
So, like, that grows. And now if I bring it to the 2010s, into the 2020s, look at the black characters we have now, or the characters people see as black. There's an argument to be said that the village in the clouds from Naruto, they're not black, they're just people from Osaka. From the more beach areas where they're more dark-skinned and tanned. But we see them as black because the way they move as characters are very black-coded, right? And then push that to now, again, you can pick the dude from Fire Force. Hunter x Hunter is technically the 90s, but even with the, retelling of that, you can see that as more people in Japan are just meeting black people in general, their views are slowly changing out of true ignorance. And that's kind of my point. More cultures now are moving out of racism, out of true ignorance, to it's a shift over. It's racism out of ignorance versus racism out of hate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
So
I've always said I'd rather deal with someone who is racist out of ignorance, because that person can be taught. If you're racist out of pure hatred or choice, you just don't care.
Yeah.
And that's what we're starting to see out of the more of the, at least from the entertainment culture of Japanese people. I'm not going to assume the actual culture. I don't live in Japan. I've only spent 2 weeks in Japan, my total longest. But just from their entertainment choices, you can see that the wide majority of people are starting to learn about people in general. And it's taken them out of ignorance to understanding, and their representation of the characters that are coming out are showing proof of that.
And I'm gonna say this before. Oh,
Good. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say this before I step away for a second, really quick. But even the Machiko and Hatchin anime and everything else like that, and then looking into the history of that and seeing like that was literally based on Aaliyah. So yeah, I'm right with you as to where it's a in Japan. I'm not surprised that some of their ignorance and racism and things like that are rooted in how their government essentially handles other governments and how they somewhat borderline on isolationism. Like that, I understand. White people here, there's nothing. There's no justification, because if you were involved in any type of high tier entertainment whatsoever, a black person has made some shit that you fuck with. Excuse my language, but like when we're talking about like history and racism and stuff like that, that shit pisses me off to the umpteenth degree, because it doesn't even make fucking sense for you to be like this. Because there was an era of music as to where black people were literally just better. Period. There was an era of music to where all of the white people that were popular around that time were taking actively from black people. I was literally just at a Stevie Wonder concert last month, if I remember correctly, here in Atlanta. Do you know how many fucking white people were buying the most expensive fucking tickets in Georgia? These people are driving 2.5 hours from Nowheresville, Hanganega County, Georgia, to see Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder can't even see them. And they're, oh, I know all his songs. And Elvis doesn't have a career without black people. The majority of y'all's prime time pop people don't have careers without us. Calm the fuck down. This is not ancient Egypt as to where you can hide you stealing from us. And then we have to go back and an historian has to break down the different types of iconography, the different types of religious texts that were taken from Egypt and then morphed and essentially commodified and broken down and given back to y'all as some new shit. No, we see it in real time. We just saw this stupid ass bitch, the hot tour girl, say that she wouldn't even thank the nigga that interviewed her for getting her here. Bitch, we saw you with a nigga with a microphone on the sidewalk. That's me. I'm gonna calm down. I just find it very interesting how every other group in the world who has their own culture is self-sufficient except American white people. That's my opinion. My name is Cal. On Twitter, I'm at Higher Caliber, Caleber. Send me your hate mail. These niggas want to argue with you. I will. Because if you arguing with my point, either you're stupid or your mom's a bitch. You probably fucked some squirrel eater. I'll be back, y'all. Give me a second.
What's his rant for today?
One thing I do want to add really quick. Years ago, I used to follow this one blogger who went under the name Gaijin Smash.
Oh, I remember him.
Yeah, like his stuff was hilarious. But essentially, he traveled over to Japan. He's a black guy. And he decided to teach. And he was there for a good, I think, 4 or 5 years before he eventually moved out of teaching into just being a regular, salaryman. And then he got married, and then that's when a lot of his stuff kind of slowed down because, hey, he started a family. Yeah, life happens. But one of his first few posts, when people were asking, like, oh, hey, what is it like being black in Japan? He said that racism is still there. Like, you still experience that, but it's different in how you experience it compared to being in the US. John, you touched on this really well when you said that there's a difference between racism due to ignorance and racism due to hate. And he said the exact same thing when he was writing about that. In Japan, because again, they didn't on average get a chance to go and meet a black person on a regular basis, they would have questions. Some of them leans towards being a little bit racist, in context, like, oh, hey, do you own any guns? How many guns do you own? Well, the guy didn't own any at all. And there was nothing that would make you think that he did. It's just that because that's what they see in media, is just that, oh, hey, a black person always has a gun. That's the only thing that they can assume. So as soon as you tell them, oh, hey, I don't have any guns, and explain that not every black person has guns, they're like, oh, okay. And they learn from that and move on. It's not out of hate, it's just they didn't know. Whereas in the US, on the other hand, he pointed out how, hey, someone can go and assume that because you're black, you own a gun, and now they're going to be like, oh, hey, well, if you get pulled over, you might end up with who knows what happens. We all know. We all know exactly what happens with that. That's the difference between, the racism that you might experience in Japan versus the racism that you'll see in the US.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to blend, like, and you're seeing the blend now with cultures with, like, more and more of these mangaka, the artists, whatever, animators, take your pick. They're starting to understand that it's the phrase "Black people are the monolith," to the point
Mm-hmm.
where the creator of Samurai Champloo said, "The reason I created it is because I wanted a character that had a lot of energy, and he created the character of Jin off of rap music and the Wu-Tang Clan." He was like, I saw a quote, and I was listening to these guys from a group called the Wu-Tang Clan, where they compared rapping their music to sword battles. So I actually wanted to create a character based on that, and that is how you get Mugen from Samurai Champloo. He based
Mm-hmm.
on the fact that he was basically fell in love with black hip hop and rap from the 90s. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
fell in love with it to the point where he wanted to create a character, and he's like, I wanted to create this, understanding and blending, and that's why they form a group. You have, Mugen, who's kind of like the hip hop head, for lack of a better word or phrase. And then you have Jin, who's the stereotypical Japanese structured guy. And then you have the girl in the middle that kind of blends that world together. And they go
Mm-hmm.
on this, journey, whatever. And you're starting to see that more especially with these characters that get introduced in a lot of these animes, where it's like, yeah, I mean, again, whether you have the village in the clouds that are black coated as heck, to the point where one of their key jonin might as well have been, rocking the do-rag, like,
Mm-hmm.
and to kind of double back on my point with Dragon Ball, Caleb, Akira Toriyama, as he got older and started meeting more black people in general, just as be like tourism and whatever, and as he started to understand more, that's why I forget what quote he said this in, but he gave the idea of Gohan as older having a do rag. He's like, I realized part of my understandings were wrong, but I thought that'd be a cool addition, and that's why Gohan rocks the glasses and do rags
Mhm.
in the later Dragon Ball, because he got to kind of reevaluate. And more of these artists are starting to do that. And now it's not even just anime and manga, it's the music too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing was, Devin, to your point, because you said two things that I heard and I can respond to. I feel like in anime, Samurai Champloo is the first easiest anime to make black because you have Nugan as we all know a hood nigga that's outside who just has hands for no reason. He never went to nobody's boxing gym. He never did the keto diet. He never da 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 whoop de whoop. He's just like that. He's with all the dumb shit at all times. And we know like the other brother, I forget his name often. My apologies. Jin, the more structured individual, is the guy who, again, probably ended up going to boarding school in middle school because his black parents were essentially making more than 250,000 a year. He was probably in the Jack and Jill program. He's more so structured and knows how to fight from a structured standpoint. So he knows a martial arts. He knows a discipline. He has a regimen. He wakes up early in the morning. He drinks tea, balanced breakfast, blah, blah, blah. He's deadly as hell. But for some reason, he just can't really just overwhelmingly beat this nigga who is just like that. And then when I think of the young lady, I think of Nunu from ATL. You see what I'm
You
Okay.
saying?
know?
Yeah, I see
You
it.
can easily
Okay.
just see this. And it's like, and mind you, I think that's also easy to for me to quantify and contextualize like that because the theme, like the sonic theme, like what you're hearing in the intro song, is very like it's a different type of black. It's like a Pharrell esque black, if that makes sense. Which everybody likes. Everybody in the black community rocks with a Pharrell type of black aesthetic because Pharrell has never tried to be anybody he wasn't. He's always just been like, yeah, bro, I'm a fucking nerd. I like to produce. I like to skateboard. I like weird shit. I like to walk on the beach. Have y'all ever been to
Mm-hmm.
the beach? And he can disarm a lot of people. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of people who are like that, who are on the dark side, hovering on the dark side spiritually, as well as their application of power, seek to protect him as well because it's like, no, this needs to be protected we need to foster this type of environment for everybody else. That's why somebody like Childish Gambino can have a thriving career because people respected that type of stuff. So it's like, bro, I'm not gonna act like I'm some street dude that I'm not, or play up this weird amalgamation character of myself to assimilate to the street guys. The street guys like that. You don't know how many times in my life, like, y'all hear how I talk, respectfully. Like, it was so many people who were just like, oh no, bro's cool. You don't touch Cal. You see what I'm saying? Like that. And that's a story of a lot of people that y'all know in major sports. These brothers who throw up these signs and everything else like that when they're playing games, and Russell Westbrooks and the DeMar DeRozans and the da-da-da. John Wall, these brothers aren't a part of gangs for real. The gangs protected them, so the gangs effectively adopted them. That's what it takes being in some of these areas. You don't get a choice as to where you're born, which means you don't get a choice on who protects you. But if you're not protected, you're a victim. Second point, where you were talking about people essentially assuming that all black people own guns. First of all black people do not own guns. We know. What I will say is, if, and this is a hypothesis, if we're moving off of the hypothesis that all black people own guns, and we live in America that is disproportionately oppressive to black people, and all black people own guns, this amount of black people dying under police, essentially stop, frisk, pullovers, da-da-da. Do you think that shit would really be, do you think America would really be like this if all black people own guns and were willing and ready to crash out over the most minor inconveniences? Do you think white people are bulletproof? That would be my rhetorical question. So all black people own guns, but police are bulletproof?
See, that's the thing.
Like,
that's why I'm saying it's ignorance versus hate, because a truly ignorant person is not going to logically put all those things together. A hateful person will logically, in the back of their head, know that, but they won't accept it. Because, to use the black people own guns analogy, one, if all black people owned guns, no offense, it wouldn't happen, because the society, the establishment, whatever, would have won. They'd have been like, oh no, we want background checks. Because if it was a real thing that all black people own guns, we would have background checks, rules. There would be all sorts of nonsense about, oh, you have to wait a few days before you can buy bullets, all sorts of crap or restrictions to keep us in line. I'm heavy quoting here for my audio listeners. Like, it wouldn't happen. It just fundamentally wouldn't. And then on some miracle, it could happen that all black people it's like a rite of passage. All right, Aquarius, you know what? You're turning 18. It's time to go get you your first gun because all black people own guns. Well, I'm still gonna have to sit you down and tell you don't wave it in front of the police. Only use it no way.
And the United States armed forces wouldn't be nearly as strong as they are globally, because you couldn't send a motherfucker who spent 6 months getting certified as a police officer to come down to even just where I was born and raised, certain parts of Florida. Let a fat white guy who has only done enough tests to pass a 6-month evaluation try and go down to Dade County where everybody has guns and everybody can beat a murder. You see what I'm saying? You're going to have to send military personnel down there to regulate that. And we see how that's working in Central American countries. That doesn't work. They have been out here putting baby oil and slippery shit on the hilled highways there to make sure that the SWAT trucks and shit like that can't get up there. And they're just clipping them. And we have much more, I'm not saying we have much more people. We have much more prone to violence people here in America. Period. Just people who are like, let's do it. That's why you can see a new fight video every 5 minutes here in America. And that's why school shootings happen, at least once an hour here in America. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, If you contextualize that, how many of these school shooters are killing as many people as they actively kill if every black person has a gun? That means every teacher, every janitor, every gym teacher, every student, everybody, every substitute teacher, every parent that's in the immediate area who's also a teacher at their school can drive over and just clip a motherfucker. This shit doesn't even logically make sense. And I'm trying so hard not to say it here because I don't want to mess us up when it comes to monetization. But a lot of y'all are the hard R. And I'm not talking about the ones that the racists use. A lot of y'all should have rode that short bus to school, but you walked to get cool with your friends, but you had one teacher all day for 12 years. That is the hard that I'm talking.
Again, segues are going to be hard, but it's
Hit me up. Higher Caliber on Twitter, and it's going to be the same thing on Blue Sky. Hit me up if you can hit me up, because I know the literacy rates here in America are declining. So you figuring out how to spell caliber?
yeah, the segue is going to be hard on this one.
My bad. I'm sorry. It's been a while. We got to
work on this one.
It's been a
Gotta
while.
make it work.
But you know what? We're just going to do the hard, ridiculous segue. I don't got nothing to smooth that over. But so real quick, before we decide to do any final rants or deep dives for today's episode, I kind of just wanted to throw out a few, ask y'all, or if anyone wants to throw out a few, anime characters that you would be like, you know what? We should have a conversation, Blackness, etc. in the future. I'll go first. We talked about it a little bit, but I would love to get into more of Afro Samurai conversation in the future, because that is one of my shining examples of, you know what, these animators, the mangakas, the people that are starting to write these things are starting to understand what us as black people just want in anime characters. Yes, we can have to borrow RDC world, we can have a stereotypical hood nigga, or we can just have a guy that likes to have a samurai sword. We just want to see it all. And honestly, that's us as black people in general. It doesn't matter if we're talking about anime, music, TV, movies. Yeah. Well, I like to see a hood movie about niggas on their weekend, aka Friday. Sure. Or do I want to see a heist movie that just happens to be a black cast? Give me Ocean 7, but with black people. I would love to see an Ocean 7 with Aldris Hodge, Denzel, John Boyega, all of them. Just it's a heist movie. Sure. And this is fundamentally when I kind of bring it all together when I talk about this culture thing. Whether it's, again, it doesn't have to be just about anime, but as black people, we just want to see us shown in every aspect. White people have been shown in every aspect for the last, 500 years or however long you want to go back to. You can have a gentleman thief or Sherlock Holmes as a white dude, but why can't we do it as a black people? That's all we want. And at the end of the day, I use Afro Samurai as just one of the examples of us starting that trend. But again, we've been slowly seeing that it's been progressively getting better. You mentioned Black Canary earlier.
Yeah, I'll say Black Canary because the backstory. I would love to see a series on that. Number one, first off, how did you even get powerful enough to assume this occupational position? Because the Zoldycks aren't just hiring anybody. Period. Point blank. Let's just call it what it is. They are the most deadly assassins in their world. Period. So they're just not going to hire. You know what I'm saying? Just first off, want to say fuck you, white people who are talking about DEI and everything. When you want to just say black people, just say black people. Just let us just be racist. You don't have to try and be you don't have to try and subvert all this shit. We know you're fucking racist already. Just say it. Stop being fucking weird. You cuck. With that being said, I would also like to see what happens post the immediate timeline in Hunter x Hunter from Canary as well. My second one would be I would love to see. You kind of talked about it where you said the Hodges, the Denzel Washington, the heist movie, and everything else like that. I would like to see Huey from the Boondocks have an intelligence extraction agency that goes back and breaks into the government and finds the true documents of them assassinating black figures in America. That would be a good heist movie because I don't know if y'all know, the Malcolm X estate is actively suing the CIA and the FBI for their part in his assassination. So shit like that would be good. Him providing the documents for the assassination of Malcolm X. We could talk about the situation with uh damn, I forgot his name from the Black Panthers immediately. Um
Oh, yeah, I'm blanking on his name
Huey
too.
Newton. Huey Newton.
Yeah.
Um we could talk about the situation as to where like even the whole course of the course change between Rico's being used on mobs and then why they turned and immediately tried to use them to black street gangs and stuff like that, and like the transference of power, how those individuals are part of the street gangs became politicians that then changed the focus. Just like after the world wars, they used Japanese doctors as well as German doctors, astronauts, and engineers and things like that to come onto America to help their programs. Finally, the black voodoo gentleman from Hunter x Hunter who removed the bomb in the Greed Island arc, and he pulled a very black man thing to do. He was like, "Let me get this shit off for me." Consulted with the ancestors, and then after he got his shit done, he just walked away. He was like, "This is some white people shit. Y'all doing some extra bullshit over here, and I feel like it's gonna be some more bullshit going over." And we never saw him again in the series at all. He just did some shit that they said you could not do by consulting with his ancestors and consulting with his own culture, and then just disappeared. I feel like a lot of black people do that shit. Um, finally, my honorable I lied. Finally, my honorable mention would I know this person isn't black. I'm gonna say it again. I know this person isn't black. But how they did my boy Obito, I needs that. I needs that. I need a full deep dive on that. And hopefully there's a kid somewhere. Probably not. Probably not, because he was a kid when he died. But just that. That would be some all four of those things would be things that I would religiously watch. Even if y'all put them out week by week on some The Boys.
Netflix.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
I would watch that. But that's me. That's
Any mentions, Devin?
So I missed the question because I had to step away for a second there. So
I was saying, like, for not for just future episodes, just the conversation in general. What are some black characters or stuff we would love to talk about? Like I mentioned Afro Samurai, but another one I wanted to mention was Coffee from Cowboy Bebop. She showed up for one episode, was swagged out in stereotypical but beautiful '90s black fashion with the high afro and everything, and then dipped. That's what I'm like. So, just kind of in general, some black anime characters or characters in general that you would just want to dive into in the future here.
oh, go ahead, Cal.
I forgot one. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Bumblebee from Naruto. That I would like to see. I would like to see that. I'm sorry. The all like the Reikage whole situation, like how that got passed down, how his story got told, like B's story, and him working with Naruto, and how they revere the Leaf Village, and how that probably panned out. Because I'm sure that would have been some type of. I just feel like that would be a different level of storytelling as to where it's like, yeah, we're dope. Our guy was our father and our grandfather and our great great grandfather was dope, but we will always respect the Uzumaki clan. and I feel like that would be dope because that's how black people typically deal with people. Like, yeah, J-Zo cool, but J-Zo's pops was like that. His, hey, hey, and his grandpops was, and it's a level of just respect. So like somebody could show up and be like, "I'm such and such Uzumaki," and then the village would be like, "Oh, Uzumaki," and would treat him just like a cousin type. So that, thank you, Devin, for giving me that because I think that would be amazing to just see. That's good.
So you guys already hit on some of the ones that I would have immediately gone to. That said, to kind of touch back on a character that we mentioned early in this episode, I pulled up his name because I was like, this is going to bother me all night. Ogun from Fire Force. Yes. I need a backstory on this guy. Like, he did too many awesome things in the couple episodes that they showed him for me to not get like any kind of, okay, this is how you got to where you were and so on and so forth. So right off the bat, I need a backstory. I need some type of side story there. That said, as an honorable mention, Jiren from Dragon Ball Super. No one can tell me that guy's not black.
Black gold in his house.
He was black coded as all hell. Tell me how he's basically like the tough guy, just sitting there watching, like, all right, I'm gonna watch these kids do stuff and everything, and then, oh, hey, you gotta stay on business. All right, he's there and doing stuff and talking wisdom the entire time. Like, no.
He set up business so hard he got jumped to lose.
Devin, Jiren is Debo with less words. Debo from Friday. That could
He's not trying to steal your stuff either.
And it's like, oh, it's your time to fight. Bet.
You saw it too, exactly.
Whoa.
Hold up, wait a minute.
Whoa. That's a black man. Jiren's a black man.
And because of that, I need to go and see his full backstory. And look, I just need to see it. And I'm going to be like, you know what? That makes sense. You know what? I lived that right there. You give me one scene where I'm like, okay, I lived that. Cool. Congratulations. You've confirmed my theory.
You know what? I actually got a segue this time. Since we're talking about living that life, we're going to go on to Caleb's final rant for the episode. He sent us some information here from Kendrick Lamar's interview with SZA. So, kind of break it down for us. Like, what'd you get out of it?
Let me pull this up really quick. Give me a second because this was boom. This was boom. Before I get into any of this, because I feel like, dude, okay, the site's not being weird. I'm going to be very honest and transparent with you guys.
What is it?
I'm not saying this from a prideful standpoint. I'm saying this from I have humbled myself standpoint. I'm one of God's people, not in a Jamestown drink the Kool-Aid cult leader type of way whatsoever. But my thing is, my relationship with God is such that when I see something wrong and I'm like, God, you saw what happened. I want this person to get what they deserve. I'm not saying it in a malicious way, like I want you to fail. May you get what you deserve because it's the least of these. Like that's what the Bible kind of hinges on when it comes to treating people well. And that's what I pride myself in. And I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. And I typically see when things happen to people who treat me wrong, that just is what it is. And certain people who are like that have that same trajectory as to where they can say something. And it may not hit you now, but it's going to hang on you. Period. Kendrick did a lot of uh, metaphysical alchemy there. For those who are not hip hop nerds like I am, or hip hop blerds rather, Pusha T was the individual who came out and exposed Drake's son and like made it a whole spectacle. Like that's one of those things with like voodoo and hoodoo and stuff like that. Like you have to be specific about who you're dealing with and put the name out there and then do what you have to do. Pusha T won from the standpoint of damaging and then just pulling a layer off. And then Kendrick did what he did. We know the big songs, the Not Like Us, the Meet the Grams, da 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 da. We know all those. After that happened, Kendrick did a beautiful thing with Let the Party Die. And he said a line in Let the Party Die to where he said, they don't hate me, they hate the man that I represent. And then he talked about how he was this type of guy who had morals and whoop de whoop, and he was there protecting children and things like that. This came out a little bit ago when we were supposed to, before life kind of picked up. In this interview that he had, and he allowed SZA, his former label mate, to interview him. They were talking essentially about what was going on, what the meaning of the song was, what it actually meant as far as his opposition, which was Drake. Um, and he essentially came back and was letting people know. The first one was his first quote was, "Not like us is the energy who I am, the type of man I represent. Now, if you identify with that man I represent, this man has morals, he has values, he believes in something, he stands on something. He's not pandering. He's a man who recognizes his mistakes and not to be afraid to share the mistakes and can dig deep down into fear-based ideologies or experiences to be able to express them without feeling like he's less of a man. If I'm thinking of Not Like Us, I'm thinking of me and whoever identifies with that." This is my thing with y'all. I'm not even going to go to the Bizarre article because this is a case, like, this is a statement by statement walk down of the interview. Y'all just need to go watch this interview respectfully. But this is a level that needs to be respected in artistry. Because in all actuality, Kendrick was never supposed to be Kendrick. Period. His dad was who he was. You can figure that out on Damn. His mom was who she was. You can figure that out on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers and To Pimp a Butterfly. And this man came up and hasn't been involved in shit at all. No negative press, no nothing. He's supporting students going to college. He's supporting individual creatives in his community. He's traveling the world. He's going back to Africa to reconnect with his roots and actually connect with people who were there to communicate with him as well. And I'm not saying that you have to like this person whatsoever. That's not my crusade. That's up to you. My simple thing is, he was in a situation with this back and forth in this beef as to where it was essentially a war against humanity and um its creative cap versus not just IT or anything else like that, but allowing machines to take over. With that being said, in the beef, Drake was the only motherfucker that popped out with uh I forget what it's called, Jay-Zo, where you have
Oh, the AI thing?
yeah.
Yeah. It was the not quite a deepfake, but it was the AI voiceover thing of
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
Pac
was
and Snoop.
yeah, of Pac, yeah.
So it's this weird thing as to where you have somebody who's rapping their ass off, who's like, let's get it, let's do it. And then this person who's like, I'm going to use this. And this is a tool that I have. And it's like, this is artistry versus orchestrated. And it's like, I don't know how to explain that to y'all further beyond that. Like, it's literally, oh, perfect. Baruto. Baruto. Baruto's tuning exam. Thank God Kendrick.
Actually, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? But it's that. It's the like, this ain't even you who's powered up like that. And everything was slated for Drake to win. And I'm saying this from as a Kendrick fan, because as beefs go, part of the beef is making the shit stick. Making bullshit stick on somebody to where it's like, oh, you can't get this off. That's like if Devin was walking around with a fucking sway in the morning lock piece, and we knew this is what Devin looked like, and I was like, hey, take that shit off. And I'm talking to Devin, and everybody is singing like, take that shit off. Hey, take that shit off. Hey, and Devin is in the mirror like, fuck. That's what this is supposed to. It's supposed to do that. And in all facets and every turn, that man Drake has shown Kendrick to provide a self-fulfilling prophecy. In Not Like Us, he was like, you niggas will get a wedgie, get flipped over your boxes, what over your foe. The other vaginal option, pussy. Drake's man's, literally, I swear to God, his man's was just in California talking shit on Kendrick. His man's got a wedgie. They didn't beat him up. They didn't shoot him. They didn't kill him. They gave him a wedgie. As a grown man, Jay Zo and Devin, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's
What
just
would have to
embarrassing.
happen to you for you to get a wedgie from another grown man?
Not
Like,
happening.
Exactly. I'm like, I can't think of a situation.
I don't understand. And even from Tyler the Creator, because Drake obviously he disses a bunch of people, but Tyler the Creator had a great song on his album to where he said, "I hope you take your mask off," and he's talking about Drake in the last bar. You see what I'm saying? It's like this is the issue is Drake didn't know what he was warring against, and he didn't know who was supporting him. And I'm looking at this like this is an issue with American ideology because that's the same thing that the president elect is dealing with right now. You don't know who you're warring with, and you don't know who your supporters are. Before,
I
go ahead.
I even add on to that. In some ways, you don't know who you are because
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I don't. My thing, and Jason, you kind of got you. I know that this was up on the docket, but I'm so removed from this because he has done so much. Drake has done so much stupid shit since this original topic was brought to task up until now. Like the whole Kendrick Bar thing where he's like, "What is it? The braids?" He doesn't even have braids anymore. He cut the fucking braids off. Like he cut his hair because of this shit as well. It's a level of you aren't you. You are the best representation of marketability that you understand. Who are you truly?
I agree because it's
Mm-hmm.
I said a long time ago because like I don't agree with people where they always said that he was more of like an interesting plant or whatever. I don't agree with those people.
No.
I just think that along the way, Drake lost his. He lost what made him him. Like he lost his actual individuality. He just kind of follows the wave, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
his personality is that he's a person that just follows the wave. Either way, that's not a representation of who you are. Like that's really what we got to stick to, is who you are. And on that note, speaking of who you are, did you have anything you want to add, Devin? Or do you want to go straight into your deep dive?
I don't have anything to add there. I think you guys covered that one very well. So, in that case, I guess I'll go right into mine. So mine's a little bit more lighthearted there, but it is something that I've kind of noticed here. Oh, hey, no,
It's never any bad,
no,
bro.
exactly. So one thing I've noticed lately is that with shonen manga specifically and anime, um, with a lot of them ending now, we've recently had JJK or Jujutsu Kaisen recently ended. We recently had My Hero Academia recently ends, but even going as far back, and this is kind of relevant because they are redoing the anime for this final season, but Bleach, when it ended, it was a similar reaction as well.
Demon Slayer,
But
yep.
yeah, Demon Slayer is another one where the ending, while it was the way that the writer intentions and what they wanted, the audience for some reason is just reacting negatively to those endings, and complaining that these writers are not doing what's called sticking the landing, or basically ending the story in a way that feels pleasant for the audience. So I think there are a few different things that are at play there. And I'm not quite sure which one is the major factor, and I kind of want to bring this up to you two as well and see what you guys think. But I don't know if it's one issue where there's pressure from the publishers that are causing these writers to rush, or because they're asking for so much that they're starting to burn out, and maybe that's why there are issues there at the end, or if it's a situation where the expectations of the vocal minority of these fan bases are way too high, where they say, oh, hey, I think it's this, and if it's not that, then it's automatically wrong. And that's having an effect on things. Or if it's that they're kind of in an echo chamber on what they think is supposed to be the ending there, and anything that's outside of that is automatically wrong. Or it could be an issue where the tastes have changed more than expected. Again, we kind of touched on this when it comes to being a nerd and kind of making that a little bit more mainstream. Perhaps with those changes, the audience has changed, and maybe these writers haven't necessarily adjusted to those changes just yet. And then finally, of course, it could be exactly as people are describing, where, it's truly becoming a lost art, where, writers can actually finish a story and finish it strong. Perhaps they come up with a great idea and they didn't really think of how it was going to end, and it just went all over the place and they lost control of it. So I wanted to go and ask you guys, where do you think it falls, or do you think it's something else that I didn't mention?
So I'll start off with a theory I have as a guy who's read a lot of manga over, I don't know, my 30 plus years of life at this point. One thing I've noticed, and I don't think this is very new at all, to be honest, I just think it's becoming more recognized. Most manga that go over 300 chapters, I have a feeling generally don't, especially shonen manga. Shoujo and seinen are a little different, but most shonen manga over 300 chapters, in my experience, the landing is never really consistent or good or whatever, for the most part. I'm not going to sit here and give you, 5 million different manga with good or bad endings, but I have this theory that if your manga gets over like 250, 300 chapters, it becomes harder and harder for that mangaka to stick the landing. So a manga that's not even technically that long, I'm gonna go back to Dragon Ball. The original Dragon Ball Z manga specifically, I don't even think it's like 250 chapters, give or take. But at multiple times when Akira Toriyama wanted to end that's why we have the various arcs, like the Frieza arc, the Cell arc, is because he tried to end the manga at very particular points, but his publishers kept making him go back, aka the Boruto effect.
Mm-hmm.
Then you also have long mangas like One Piece that are long. Now the mangaka might have a ending in mind. Actually, this is more of the Naruto option. I'm gonna go to Naruto, not One Piece. Akira Toriyama, I said Akira Toriyama again. Mishimoto from Naruto, he always knew what he wanted his ending to be, but because of the publishers going back, he had to change how he got there, which is why we have the whole aliens and Boruto thing, whatever, because they wanted to continue it. He always wanted to show the manga to end with Naruto and Sasuke as the final confrontation, but how he got there changed because of how he had to get there through his publishers and what they wanted. So there are multiple factors, but my theory is that once you get to that point where it's probably like 200 chapters, where you start pushing over 250 to 300 ongoing, that ending gets harder to nail down, to the point where some of these mangaka are taking it out of the publisher's hands and just ending their shows. Demon Slayer, the manga's on record. They're like, no, I was never planning on having it. This was my ending. I was in and out. I wanted the story to be done.
Mhm.
Same thing with JJK. I think that manga was like, yeah, I'm not trying to drag this out. Period. I'm ending it. So
I'm
even
gonna.
the Attack on Titan dude, which is probably one of the biggest anticipated endings of a manga in a long time, probably. He was like, I have an ending, and this ending is going to upset people, but his ending is also a reflection of his own life, and the fact that people don't understand that is sneaky. And I think it comes back to, at the end of the day, I think you're nailed it on the head when you talk about the culture of the low of the loud minority.
Mhm.
We have more and more people that are into the medium, which makes more expectations, which are pushing both publishers and the manga writers themselves to try and smooth it out to the point where the actual visions are getting distorted. And I think that's kind of the encapsulating thing about it, at least in my mind.
Mhm.
Because if I were to look at some of the recent endings, didn't read Attack on Titan. I anticipated the ending. It took me out of it. I was right. That's a story for another day. But the Attack on Titan ending, again, is a reflection of the guy's life. He grew with his own writing and realized what he was putting out into the world was not what his intent was. So he had something to end and show his actual worldview. JJK, the mangaka, was trying to finish it up because they did not want to go on forever. Demon Slayer is more of the same thing. They were not trying to drag this out. So her ending was to end the way they wanted. Is it an ending people would have liked? Eh. But I think for what the story is actually about, it is a very suitable ending. And I think people need to take their own egos out of what they're reading and actually comprehend the story of what they're actually being shown. I'm done there.
All right, go.
Um, I'm gonna be honest. This is not discrediting anybody whatsoever, but um, a famous musician said, "I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit." With that being said, a lot of the times, I don't think a lot of people are satisfied with the ending of anything that they hold near and dear to their heart when it comes to a creative standpoint. Um, Jazo, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you see FD Signifier's thing about Attack on Titan
I did watch that.
and
Yep.
everything else like that? And it's like, y'all weren't supposed to like that nigga. You weren't. And the fact that a lot of y'all liked him says a lot about you, more than it says about him.
Speaks volumes.
My thing is, it's I'm not too I'm not too big on the vocal minority when it comes to anything, because oftentimes it's like y'all are just weird, bored motherfuckers who have enough time to bother the creator for real, for real. Like it's not really even changing anything. And I'm not gonna do that. That's another political thing. My my thing that I want motherfuckers to take away from this is Who said that you have to like the way a creator of their shit ends their shit?
Right there on the head.
Bitch, just because it's not a happy conclusion for you doesn't mean it's not a happy conclusion for them. They had a story that they were going to tell. You don't have to like it.
That is my overall point. The conversation should not be, do I like the ending, do I hate the ending, whatever. It should be, is this a reasonable conclusion to this story as presented? That's where I think most people are not using a literary critiquing. Like, they're not critiquing it in a literary sense. They're critiquing on it, oh, this happened, I didn't like it. Go write your fan fiction and sit down somewhere. Like, do that on your own. But, like, more and more, and it goes through all sorts of media, is this a reasonable conclusion? Case in point, I'm going to switch it. Star Wars, going from episodes, the newer ones, from, 9 to 10 or whatever? 7 to 8 to 9. 7 to 8 to 9.
Oh, okay.
The reason why it doesn't work is because the conclusions of the endings of each do not have a literary muster, and people can feel it, which is why they don't work overall. Yeah, there might be parts of the story that you like or different things, but when you look at it from, is this story satisfying? It doesn't work. Because a lot of the times, like, between the haphazard way they film those things, it does not feel like it's cohesive. But then when you take it to episodes, the originals of 4, 5, and 6, yeah, George Lucas is not good at writing dialogue. He had help in that fact, between his actors and stuff. But you could tell that he had a cohesive story, and even if they made changes, like the twist of Darth Vader and, whatever, like, and, them being twins or whatever, even though you could tell that they changed things, he had a cohesive story he was trying to tell, and that holds muster, and that's why it works and resonates. Taking it back to anime, especially with these endings, Demon Slayer is my go-to one. A lot of people didn't like it because it felt like they just skipped the time jump. But what the story of Demon Slayer, especially if you're reading a manga, is very heavily reliant on is the fact that this central villain changed the way many people reacted for hundreds of years. So taking a 100-year time point to a more modern age to show how people would have lived without his influence is the ending. That's the way I saw it from the beginning, and that's why I don't have a problem with the ending. Yeah, it'd have been cool to kind of see some of the characters get together or whatever, but, like, that's not the point. The point is Muzan's been messing with human history by being immortal and creating demons for the last however many years. Now we're going to jump an almost similar time skip and show what his influence, when he's not there, has on the world. And yeah, the characters are basically descendants of each other, but at this point, you're getting to see that they live in peace, rather than having to grow up as child warriors. Like, what? This is a direct ending. You may not like how it's presented, but this is an actual ending.
And Jazo, to be fair, my thing is to even show you the way that I still stand by it. Like, just because you don't like the ending doesn't mean it wasn't the intended ending. Is a Mortal Technique. A Mortal Technique. I think it was Dancing with the Devil. He made a song about individuals getting into gang culture in New York, and typically in certain gangs, you have a barrier of entry. Some people's barrier of entry is like, you got to go out and kill somebody before we even stamp you, because they need a murder on you type deal. His gang was like, you got to go out and sexually assault a woman. And he was like, all right, word. You got to sexually assault a woman and kill him. And he's like, all right, word, I'll whoop de whoop. And this was a whole story. He sexually assaulted his mom. You see what I'm saying? You see how both of y'all just reacted? That was the ending to the story. The story doesn't give a fuck about how you feel about it. It cares about who tells it. That was the story that needed to be told, bro. And it was a cautionary tale. But my thing is, y'all, like, not y'all. I'm saying y'all and, like,
Society.
yeah, society. is the point. Y'all are so fucking spoiled. You think that everything is supposed to make you happy and commodify you with this shit. Nigga, the artists don't give a fuck about you. They give a fuck about giving a message. What was the message of Attack on Titan? What was the message on Dance with the Devil of the song that I just told you about? What was the message of Rewind by Nas? What was the message of Kingdom Hearts? What was the message of Elden Ring? Y'all miss shit because you have a desire to something. Nobody gives a fuck about it. Half of you motherfuckers don't even have a functional relationship with your family. Is that your desired end? Bitch, it doesn't work like that, bro. We play D&D and Dev is the fucking GM. You know how many things I want to happen that don't happen because the dice don't roll and he's the GM and he's like, well, that shit didn't work. It just doesn't work. Nigga, that's the end of the story. Hansel and Gretel. All of this. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. All of this. Nigga, look at the Passion of the Christ. You think people want to see Jesus die? You bitch ass nigga. You think when we look at I forget the movie that was based off of a true story that Michael B. Jordan acted where they killed him, and they dragged him out of a train.
Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale Station. Do you think that's what the people wanted? People were crying out that bitch. Do you think the desired ending of Roots was the ending that you got? No. Stories happen. Lives happen. Adjust to it, you weird one teacher a day ass nigga. This is not supposed to be comfortable.
Nah, that's one teacher a day.
Man, I'm gonna have to steal that insult, right?
My bad.
I need that.
My bad. I'm not trying to be rude, bro. Y'all two brothers are nice, and it's nothing against it. Maintain your spirit, maintain your integrity, maintain who you are. I'm just somebody who doesn't like this level of cognitive dissonance, this intellectual, disingenuous bullshit. I don't like this, bro. Just because something doesn't tickle your jimmies doesn't mean it has no fucking value. I don't like that shit, bro. You know how much shit I digest on the regular that I don't agree with it, but I understand it? I'm a black man who's a history buff. What the fuck do you think my life is like, you bitch ass? My bad.
But
my bad.
All jokes aside, like, again, for me, when it comes to the ending of a story, like we'll go manga specifically. It's not, to me, it's not about if a story is good and bad or not objectively about if it's good or bad in that regard. It's about, does this story or does this ending make sense for the story we're telling?
Exactly.
And I'll give a few more examples. The Bleach Naruto kind of comparison where it was just like, hey, we ended with the guy having a buzz cut and has a kid. Like, you could clearly tell there wasn't a real ending there because they were both commodified in one way or another. Yeah. Naruto because they wanted to have a continuation long before they ended it. And then Bleach because the artist himself was tired of writing it and they were being forced to keep writing it. So he came up with a PS ending. To the point now where for the anime readaptation of Thousand Year Blood War, they brought him back so they make changes and give him his actual vision. Like, that's what we should be talking about, whether a story is good or bad. Does this ending encapsulate this story and give it closure? And then we can judge it on that merit.
I don't. My only thing with the ending of Naruto is Naruto was supposed to have long hair and like sprawling facial hair, just as somebody who doesn't give a fuck, because he didn't give a fuck. He didn't give a fuck. I just want the long hair Naruto with like a peach fuzz buzz with his wife. That's it. I think that would be cool. Naruto is supposed to look like a nigga who accidentally gets hoes as the Hokage. He's supposed to look. He's supposed to have like the long straggly hair. Like, I'm not gonna cut it. Like, and he's just his business.
But see, that is one potential ending which could have been good. I
Yeah,
have a counterpoint, which could also technically be good, but encapsulates the story. This Naruto ending where he's more, I'm not gonna say clean cut, but he's dialed back some of his more scraggliness, for lack of a
you
better
feel like he
word.
had to rise to his station. I understand.
Yes, because he was accepted by the people that he wanted to be accepted by, for
Exactly.
not for the reasons that he initially wanted, and and then he fulfills what the third Hokage told him in the beginning by, in the end, scolding his son and saying, "You don't earn." Basically, by showing him like you don't earn respect by lashing out, you earn respect by doing good, and it kind of fulfills his circular arc of his story. That's why, even though I use those as comparisons, that's why I think Bleach was weak, but Naruto, even though they messed with it, it's a relatively good ending. It's just maybe not the ending most people wanted.
No, but even though it's not, but that's also showing the difference between Blerd and Black Nerd, because although it wasn't what I wanted, I understood it, I can respect it, and I accept it. You see what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
there is a level of self-policing that happens with you as a black person in corporate America. Period. And I'm not saying none of
Mhm.
it was black whatsoever. I'm simply saying the level of expectation that goes into that, as well as the disenfranchisement as a result of you not having a family, and then the wanting better for yourself, and then seeking upward mobility. You have to acquiesce to certain business standards, like certain professional standards, certain aesthetic standards. You have to do that. Period, point blank. So that's why it's like, that's why I was always an Chia fan. I can't hold you. Like, nigga, you know what's going
Yeah,
on.
we can see the influences
It's
Yumi on your
always
mind.
Mhm.
it's always been like, I fuck with the Uchiha. I fuck with the steppers, bro. It's always gonna be the steppers. But I can understand where Naruto was coming from. Period, point blank. Even yet and still, after the initial joint with Naruto, Sasuke was growing his hair out. He went on a natural hair care journey, just like a black person. After a little bit, Devin, I'm sorry, but you go.
What are you talking about? I got this long mane right here. What are you talking about?
It's so long, but you just
Exactly.
Saying, let Devin get a fucking high top fade. You bitches is done. You're done. Let him
Ladies, watch out.
let him
2025.
was just him being indoctrinated because he had no family at that point. You see what I'm saying, Jason? So he had to assimilate to the power structure. I know it's not supposed to be read this deep. I get it. I'm just this is how I'm interpreting it as a black man. Like, he had no family structure, he had no culture to go back to. So his culture was power. I need to be strong. I will do whatever it takes to be the strongest, and I will achieve the highest position,
respect.
the highest stage. And it was like, that's fucked, but that is such a beautiful fucking story, bro. Like, it's so, Jesus, this shit is so fucking beautiful. But
Again, and yeah, no, agree. And this is why I think the ending, even though it might not be what most people wanted, it works because, like you said, he does these things for his initial goal of wanting respect. That's why he wants the highest seat in his country, so he can finally be respected after being disrespected for all his formative years. But in return, he learns that you gain that position by having the respect of the people, not the other way around. So after he basically helps stop the war, stop Sasuke, all that good stuff, he becomes the future Hokage because he earned the respect of the people, and that's in that final panel of the manga when he's chastising Boruto. Is that he's trying to teach him the stuff he learned that he could have learned when he was younger.
yeah,
That's why I think the ending actually works.
I lied,
But yeah,
Jason. I lied. I got one last rant in me. Let me get this rant off, please.
hey man, we kicked it in at 2 hours here. Go ahead.
Sasuke should have been a polygamist. He should have been a polygamist. All the
This is
hoes,
what you were expecting, Devin.
all the hoes in his class wanted Sasuke. Sasuke could have easily ninjutsu these bitches into being like, you're the only one. While he's actively fucking these other bitches, getting them pregnant. Yes, I understand. You know what I'm saying? This other girl may be pregnant. Y'all cycles are synced because you're divine ninjas. And you have the same. He could have repopulated the Uchiha in the Leaf Village badly. He could have, and he should have, because I support Uchiha power. I support Uchiha dominance. I do.
That would have been a ridiculous ending.
I'm just simply saying I have to support it because a nigga like Neji should have never fucking died, bro. His whole technique was thwarting attacks, and he just jumped in front of it and took the poles in the back like a bitch getting back shots. And we're supposed to.
So yeah. Hey man, why didn't Piccolo just grab Gohan and get out of the way? Why did he take the blow?
Double penetrated. He got double penetrated in front of. Why didn't you complete the cycle? Say Nani, nigga. I don't like. It doesn't even make sense. My bad. That's
so that's his final rant for the episode.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap up this ending conversation about endings, what you got, Devin? Any final thoughts on that one?
Meiji out here taking back shots. Wait a minute. Time out. Hold on. That's not the very beginning of the manga either.
And
the
first part of it, Devin, those poles were black. It was BBC's he was taking.
Bro, what? Yo, what site did you watch this version of Naruto on, bro?
I watched it.
Yo.
Pain had it come out of
it. All I gotta ask is, were you looking at the website where you gotta go and look up numbers and everything to go and find stuff? Because this
was not the same site where I watched Bumblebee have sex with Cyborg. This was not the same.
On that note, I'm gonna let you catch your breath, Evan. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good, man.
I think that's a wonderful place to end this episode. So there's one thing left to do is to give you our final quote for tonight, which is I picked this one in advance. I usually pick it a little more on the fly, but it actually encapsulates pretty much this whole episode. So it worked out beautifully. So the quote for this episode actually comes from the Puppet Master in Ghost in the Shell. All things change in a dynamic environment. Your effort to remain who you are is what limits you. On that note, I've been your boy John.
This is Devin.
This is Cal.
And it's been a crazy one, but we out. Peace.